Hey dudes, welcome to Splat from the Past, the only 80s themed horror and sci-fi show where things can get totally radical. Now today, I will be welcoming a stand-up comedy legend that the whole world should know because he is a very funny guy. I grew up watching him on various stand-up comedy cable shows, and he was in Rodney Dangerfield's Ladybugs, and I'm talking about Tom Parks. He's coming on the show today to talk about all that stuff today. I'm glad I found him on Facebook, and I want to find out more about him. There's not much written on the internet about Tom Parks. He's a very funny guy, and I can't wait. My second interview from Ladybugs in the last month. So, here is my interview with Tom Parks. Hey, Tom.
Hey, Tommy.
Welcome to the show, sir. How are you?
Hey, I'm very fine. How is it up in Northern California?
Let's see. The sun is out. It's a little bit mid-chilly, but a little bit mid-sunny at the same time.
Yeah, we're suffering through. We're down here in the Palm Springs area. It's going to be in the low 80s today.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it's such a great honor. Thank you for taking the time today.
Oh, my pleasure.
Awesome. So, going back in time, did you gravitate toward comedy early on?
I had no plans for comedy. I just graduated from the University of Florida and moved to Atlanta to, figure out my life. I didn't really have a plan. I had a degree in journalism, but no real plan. And I ended up managing a community in Atlanta, and did that for about 3 or 4 months. And one day I was walking the property, and I passed a girl that I had seen before and was interested in. So we passed on the stair, and I blurted out, "Would you like to go out?" And she said, "Sure." Well, I hadn't planned the conversation past no. And so she recognized that I was sort of stuck for a moment. She said, "Well, there's this club in town. Harry Chapin is performing there. Let's go see Harry Chapin." She said, "Sure." So it was the first club that I'd ever been into. It was a music club in Atlanta called the Great Southeast Music Hall. And they had music acts, mostly. They did some comedy. But Harry Chapin was a folk singer, and we went to him. In between songs, he would tell stories about what he did early in the day, why he wrote the song that he was about to sing. And they were funny stories. And they were the kind of stories that I told my friends at parties. So at some point during the show, I turned to my date and said, "I think I could do that." Well, she put her mouth against my ear and said, "I think you could too." Well, hell, I'm going to the show business. I knew she'd be real impressed if I got up there. So about 2 weeks later, they had an open mic night for musicians. It was 4 music acts and me. And I was the first local comedian that ever called them saying, "I'd like to be a stand-up comedian." They just hadn't had anybody say that. So I went on in the middle. There were 2 music acts before me, 2 music acts after me. And as I had no emotional investment in being a comedian. It was just, I was so lost as far as being happy in my life with what I was doing, that I was willing to try something. And I got up, and as soon as the audience laughed, that is the clearest moment I have ever had in my life.
Wow.
I saw all the way to the Tonight Show in that moment. And from that moment until I did the Tonight Show, I never doubted that I would be on the Tonight Show.
Mm-hmm.
It was just this. It was a revelation, and thank God for Patty Wilmot, that girl that I took out.
Yeah.
Because if I'd have said I think I could do that, and she had laughed or said anything negative, anything but I think you could too. Well, I don't know what I'd be doing, because it wasn't some grand plan that I had. It was just this moment, a serendipitous moment, and it changed my life. And I quit that job within a month and went to work on a night shift at a liquor store because I could get time off.
Yeah.
I went in to do spots, but there weren't any comedy clubs in Atlanta.
Yeah.
I was having to scrounge around trying to find places to perform. But the Great Southeast Music Hall, I got to perform there actually quite a bit. So that was my start.
Wow. Yeah, I felt the same way the first time I ever went up on stage. I just was like, oh my God, this is it. You know, I got to do this. It was just
there's nothing more powerful than hearing people laugh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing experience.
Yeah. What year was that?
That was 1970. That was December of 73. So it was about early December of 73. That was the first time and I got paid. That's another thing. It was an open mic night, but they took the money that they collected from the door and split it up among the acts. I made $50, and then for the next 2 years, 74 and 75, kicked around Atlanta trying to find places to perform. I probably performed, I don't know, 30 times in those 2 years. And then in 1976, in January of 1976, I had figured a way to book myself at colleges close by Atlanta. I found out that the people who book colleges are generally the students going to the colleges. And college students will book anybody that costs $100. They don't even ask you what you do. You're $100? Come on. So I started booking myself locally in Georgia, and then started expanding. But I had enough bookings by January of 1976 to say that I was making a living at it. So I quit my day job and started making a living, and made a living at it from then on for the next 35 years.
Wow, that's amazing. What kind of stuff did you talk about at that time?
Well, I was just out of college, and so I was talking about the college experience, about my education and what college was like. And that endeared me to college audiences. I made a living at colleges, 76. I didn't do the Tonight Show, 87. And then clubs started about 82 or 83. So for the next 7 years, I did colleges. I probably performed at 1,000 colleges. My fall tour in 1980 was 90 one-night college dates in 110 days without going home. So, and that was all east of the Mississippi. So I traveled from Maine to Miami, and all up and down I-95, playing colleges. And it was a great learning experience, because your audiences were everything from, I had 7 people in a college in in a college dorm room, not a dorm room, but the open air area in the dorm.
Right.
When you came in, seven college students and me standing on a half apple, talking to them, up to 5,000-6,000 students, and everything in between, working cafeterias at colleges at noon, and then working in auditoriums, working in gymnasium, and I learned a lot about making it work.
Mm-hmm. And so you started in Atlanta, but did you eventually move to New York?
No. The choices were New York or Los Angeles.
Right.
So 76. It was probably 83. Clubs had started. I had started working clubs by the time I finally moved to Los Angeles. But I was making a real good living out of Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was a point where I'm never going to go beyond this unless I get to New York or LA. And I had grown up in upstate New York.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew I didn't want to go back to that kind of weather. I packed everything I had in a van and drove to LA. And I'd never been out here. I knew a couple of people out here, but many. And I wasn't in Atlanta 20 minutes before I was used to it. I love LA. The weather, the scene out here was great. And then I started working clubs. I still didn't hang out in Los Angeles very much.
Yeah.
Argus Hamilton.
I know Argus. Yeah.
Yeah. We've got a couple of people in common. Peter Jason is a good friend of mine.
I love Peter. Yeah.
Yeah. He's one of my golf buddies. But,
nice.
Argus and I knew one another, and he took me into the Comedy Store and introduced me to Mitzi.
Mm-hmm.
And so I gained the ability to work the Comedy Store, but I didn't do it very much. I was making a nice living out on the road.
Yeah.
And I could work out on the road for $1,500 a night, or I could work at the Comedy Store for $15 a night.
Mm-hmm.
And the choice to me was really easy. So I continued working on the road, although when I was in town, I would do the Comedy Store occasionally. And I didn't work the Improv until after I did the Tonight Show. My first time at the Improv was like a week or two after I did the Tonight Show the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I worked the Comedy and Magic Club. I worked the Ice House. I worked Igby's. Igby's is where Jim McCauley saw me for the Tonight Show.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I got on the Tonight Show.
Yeah, I played the Ice House. Nice venue.
Oh, I love the Ice House. And the Comedy and Magic in Hermosa Beach is one of the best California rooms I ever worked in. It was a club that felt like clubs out in the country. The Improv and the Comedy Store can feel like industry rooms.
Mm-hmm.
But the Comedy Magic Club felt like a regular comedy room, and I really loved it. And the Ice House too. They both had that same kind of feel.
Yeah. Well, the Ice House, was a music venue before it was a comedy club.
It had a long history.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Goes back to 1960 at least, but yeah, by like the late 70s, it was a comedy venue too. It was half comedy, half music, and then it became a full-fledged comedy venue after that.
Right. Well, there was the guys who came through Southeast Music Hall in Atlanta. The comedians that I saw in those 2 years before I got on the road. Oh, I went to work for the Great Southeast Music Hall, taking tickets at the door,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what I was doing. And so I got to see a lot of acts, although they were almost, they were 99% music.
Mm-hmm.
Steve Martin played there.
Yep.
Martin Mull played there. Lily Tomlin played that room. Steve Martin and Martin Mull played it together, doing the Steve Martin Mull review.
Like he does with Martin Short now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they would swap off as to who headlined night to night. I saw David Steinberg there. It was a great learning experience, being able to see those guys a week at a time in a small venue. Small. It was a 500-seat room, but it was intimate.
Yeah. Yeah, it was an exciting time for comedy. What year did you get out there to the Comedy Store?
Probably 83.
83. Okay, so that was a couple of years after the strike. It was when the place got really dark, when Sam Kinison was there.
Yeah. And the guys I sort of was around, John Mendoza,
Yeah.
Steve Smith, Tom McTeague, Bill Engvall was part of those are all my golfing buddies. Bill Engvall was in the golfing group.
Mm-hmm.
Foxworthy was in the golfing group. So it was that time period. Jan Karam, who's also been on your show,
Yep.
was around at that time. It was very exciting.
Yeah, Jan is one of the few comics I have met who never set foot in the Comedy Store because she had heard how dark and seedy that place was.
Well, it was dark and seedy, but it was exciting. It was exciting being around in that room.
Yeah. I mean, I've been there now and stuff. I mean, it still has the same vibe that I can imagine it had back in the 80s. You know, it's still haunted by ghosts. You know, I mean, the whole vibe is different with the comedians they got there now and stuff. Like Argus is the only one left over from the old days.
Right.
You know, but
it's seen a lot of comedy.
It's still a magical place. You know, but did she like you?
Yes, she did. And I mean, that was her sitting in judgment on that first set.
Mm-hmm.
was a awful experience. You know, it's bad enough having audiences judge you, but to have sort of your career depending on one person and what they think of you.
Yeah.
I don't know how much Argus was part of that, because I was a friend of his. You know, you never know how they make those kind of decisions. But
Mm-hmm.
she liked me well enough. My name was up on the Comedy Store wall.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, she liked me well enough.
How about Bud?
Bud was also a fan. I worked regularly there, and I did some road work for Bud. But again, I didn't hang out like a lot of comedians did. To me, it was a business.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be making money, and the money for me was on the road. Then I didn't really start being in town more until I did the Tonight Show the first time in 1987. So after that, I got some television work after that,
Mm-hmm.
and that kept me in town more. But I stayed on the road a lot. I probably, you don't know. Things might have happened faster if I'd stayed in town more, but I wouldn't have had as much money. So
Yeah.
who knows? Who knows?
Steve Per.
Yes.
I'll go ahead. I was gonna say.
I like the way it turned out.
Yeah, you made a good living, you made some money, and you didn't have to, jump through the ropes and do a lot of crazy stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah. Steve Pearl?
I don't know Steve.
He's one of the most brilliant comics ever. He's a San Francisco guy. He was at the Comedy Store in the 80s and 90s. He told me he called the Improv Uncle Bud's House of No Eye Contact.
Well, I know what that's like.
Yeah, he's like, lesson for today, kids, never trust a Jew with a monocle.
Well, here's my favorite. I did the Tonight Show, and it wasn't 4 or 5 days later.
Mm-hmm.
I was being represented by APA,
mm-hmm.
and my agent at APA said, "Well, let's go hang at the Improv,
yeah,
tonight." So okay, so we go down, and my agent was really close with Bud. We got a big table, and there was a bunch of comics with us, and my agent, and we're all sitting around having drinks. And Bud Friedman walks over and says, "Hey, Tom, I saw your set. Why don't you come down and work the Improv?" And I looked at Bud and went, "Bud, that's all I've been waiting for. You to ask."
Yeah.
So that was a good moment, was that the first time I played the Improv, Bud Friedman asked me to play the Improv. I didn't have to stand in line and wait for to get picked out of the line to go in and do a set at the Improv.
Yeah. Did he put you on an evening at the Improv?
I did evening at the Improv. Yes, I did.
Yeah. I used to watch that show all the time when it was on A&E and stuff. I was watching your set that you did on Showtime Comedy Club Network on YouTube last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, you did this bit that I could relate to so well. You were doing the gallbladder removal bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually, for the people that haven't heard it, there's a moment at the end of the thing where I demonstrate the insertion of a catheter.
Yeah.
Using the microphone as my cock. And I hold the catheter above the microphone and say, and then the nurse inserts it, and I slam my hand into the head of the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
This night in a club, one of the audience members passed out when I did that.
Well, there was that one girl that was in the audience. She said that I think she was a doctor or a nurse or something, and she was like agreeing with everything you were saying.
She was a nurse.
Yeah.
Couldn't make a more perfect person to validate everything that I was talking about.
Yeah. When you were on the Tonight Show, did Johnny call you over to the table the first time?
Not the first time. The second time he did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, were you? Yeah, I watched it. I mean, were you just in awe of him?
Yes, I was. He was a comic. He liked comedians. He wanted you to succeed, and he did. He created an atmosphere where you could succeed. A lot of comedians who are hosts, it can get competitive.
Yeah.
Where they're looking, when you're talking to them, you can see they're looking for a place to insert themselves.
Right.
Whatever you're thinking about. And Johnny was trying to set you up. And I remember the first time I did the show, I was in makeup. And I'm sitting there, my back's at the door, and I hear his voice call out my name, Tom. And I turned around, and he said, "I'm glad you're here." And he didn't know me from Adam.
Yeah.
And happened to swing by the door and said that, and it was the best thing in the world because I was nervous enough to walk. Right before you walk out on stage that first time, an old stagehand who has his hand on the curtain, and he's going to open the curtain for you to go out on the stage. So Johnny Carson is saying my name on national television. Mm-hmm. This guy looks at me right before he pulls the curtain open and goes, "Kid, relax. It's just your career."
Yeah. I remember he asked you something like, "Are you married?" And you were like, "No, I can't get past want to go out again."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm having trouble getting past you want to go out again.
Yeah.
But he was just very supportive and really funny. And
yeah, and I see too. In 1978, you were on the Mike Douglas show, or is that one of those IMDb flubbers?
It could be an IMDb flubber. If I did the Mike Douglas show, I'm trying to, there's stuff I've forgotten. But
I wouldn't forget that.
I'm pretty sure I didn't do the Mike Douglas show. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I didn't do the Mike Douglas show.
Yeah. Well, if you can't remember, we don't have to talk about it.
Yeah.
But, you, of course, did an HBO One Night Stand in 1990.
Yes. And that was in Chicago at the Old Vic, Chicago.
Yeah.
And that was after not necessarily the news, I think. Not necessarily the news was the big thing that I did for HBO.
Yeah. Did you get this show because of not necessarily the news?
The Old Vic show?
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly how that got booked. There was a bunch of us that were getting shows at that time. There was a group of us that did a bunch of those shows at that time. And I don't remember how the show came about, how it got booked. Mm-hmm. But it was fun.
Yeah, and you were in good company. It was the same year that they had Larry Miller, Ellen DeGeneres, Will Durst, Robin Harris, Dennis Wolfberg.
Oh, man. I worked with Dennis at my first club gig was with Dennis Wolfberg and John Mendoza.
Yeah.
And that was a great club gig. That was in Atlanta, Punchline in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's a great group. I also did the A-List with Ellen DeGeneres. She hosted a TV stand-up show called the A-List. Uh-huh. And that was filmed in Santa Monica. But yeah, I worked with Ellen, and she was fun to work with.
Oh, that's good. Oh, that same year, you also got to be on Comic Relief 4.
That was at Radio City Music Hall in New York City.
They were in L.A. that year?
No, it was in New York City.
Okay.
Being around Robin Williams and Billy and Whoopi and all those other comics, it was great. I remember we were singing. There was a bunch of us singing. I was standing next to Luther Vandross, and right before we started singing, he said, I turned to Luther and said, "Look, if I'm throwing you off, just tell me to shut up. I'll lip sync." But yeah, we had and being in New York City was exciting at that time.
Yeah.
I got to play Caroline's around that time in New York City.
Oh, I used to watch Caroline's Comedy Hour. Richard Jenny.
Oh, Richard was another friend of mine. One of our sadder stories. He was one of the comics I admired the most. was very prolific in his writing. And,
I know. I talked to Tom Dreesen. He told me he did a show with him once, right? And like, you know, they did like, I don't know, 4 sets that night, right? And after each one, he was like, "Where's Richard?" He'd be in his car writing new material, and he would do like 4 different hours that whole night, and never the same joke, never the same premise. I mean, he was amazing.
He was amazing. He was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's sad, you know, he didn't see himself that way. You know, he wanted to be another comedian with a sitcom, you know.
Yes, there was a darkness about him. But man, he was fun.
Yeah, he was one of the greats. How does not necessarily the news come into your life?
It was a straight up audition, and there were like 4 or 5 callbacks for it. There was a bunch of us getting called back. I remember Tommy McTeague and I were close friends,
mm-hmm.
and McTeague and I were in the last group being auditioned, and there were 2 or 3 guys left, and it was down to me, McTeague, and a couple other guys, and I got picked. Who knows? I got the call, and that was a great show because it was live.
Yeah.
On the night that we debuted on HBO, I think it was on a Wednesday night, it would be live that night. And then it would be on tape for the rest of the week. But every time we did a new show, we were live on air live. So it was exciting.
Yeah. Were you a fan of the show already?
Yes. In fact, Stu Pankin, who was on the show before me, we replaced an earlier cast. And Stu and I, after I had replaced him,
mm-hmm.
Became very close friends and golfing buddies. So
yeah, I've talked to Stu and I've talked to Lucy Webb. They are just brilliant, talented people.
Yes, yeah. Stu's a fine actor.
Mm-hmm.
Lucy's, I don't know her as well, but the times that I've met her, very, very nice. I liked her a lot.
Yeah, she was married to Kevin Pollak at that time.
She was at that time.
Yeah. Yeah, it was such a groundbreaking, irreverent show. You know, I mean, Conan O'Brien got his start on that show as a writer.
Yeah.
You know, and I remember one time they did this this bit where you see Ronald Reagan and George Bush enjoying themselves, and it turns out that they were watching a rap concert.
The video editing on that show was really amazing. One of the things that I remember doing was interviewing George Bush, and we've written the questions, and we've got video of him giving answers to different questions.
Yeah.
We're using his answers to our questions, and it was really a lot of fun.
Yeah. It was such a funny show. The multi-talented Rich Hall, oh my God, he's had an amazing career, but he's so underappreciated in comedy, I think.
Yeah, he was fun to work with, and he was from the previous show. He was one of the few that got held over.
Yeah.
But yeah, an amazingly talented man.
And the late Danny Breen.
Yes, yeah.
And Ann Bloom, she's a talented actress.
Right. They were all really great.
You had a small part in Rodney Dangerfield's The Really Big Show.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wow.
I love that. I have it on DVD with a collection of all of Rodney's specials.
Right. Well, that small part got me in a movie with Rodney.
And Ladybugs, right?
Yeah. And it was because of that, and that small part, I was in my apartment in Los Angeles one morning, and I get a call from somebody I know that's working on the production of a really big show.
Mm-hmm.
And she says, one of our actors didn't show up. Can you be down here in an hour?
Mm-hmm.
And it was at the Grauman's Chinese Theater. And I said, yeah. So I was only, a couple of miles away.
Yeah.
The apartment wasn't very far. So I drove down, and I did that little part that I had. And Rodney liked me.
Yeah.
Never met him before. He liked what I did.
Mm-hmm.
Commented on it. He liked what I did. So I'm going to do something for you, kid. And then not very much longer after that, I got the call for a Ladybug.
Wow.
And I had to go in and audition for him. It was at the Hilton. He had he lived at the Hilton Hotel. And I had to go up to his suite and audition for him. But I got the part.
Yeah, and the really big show though, I love the whole scenario. You're presenting, Harry Basil with the star on the Walk of Fame. He's got Steve Allen there, and it's like the premiere of Steven Seagal's movie Out for Justice. And it's just brilliant,
Yeah.
Too bad Rodney didn't do any more young comedian specials after that. You probably would have been on one of them.
Yes. Yeah. I always thought that I'd get on one of those, but he didn't do anything.
Yeah, I talked to Bob Zaney. He told me that this was Rodney's only special that didn't break anyone big because of the oversaturation of cable stand-up shows. But
Right.
I personally think Bob and David Tyree should have broke big from this special.
Yeah. Yeah.
They were brilliant, those guys.
They were. Yeah.
And then the other guys, Sid Youngers and Hugh Fink, they became writers. And
Right.
Harry Basil, of course, runs the Laugh Factory in Vegas.
Yeah.
And stuff. Yeah. So it worked out the best.
Yeah, and Harry Basil wrote Ladybugs.
Mm-hmm. So you were the first and only choice to play Dave in Ladybugs.
No, I think Bill Murray's brother was up for that.
Oh, Brian Doyle Murray?
Brian Doyle Murray. I think it was between the two of us. I don't know the particulars of it, but Brian's name was mentioned at the time.
Now that makes sense because they did Caddyshack together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow. Yeah, last month I talked to Jonah Stewart Bowden, who played Sally on the team.
Yes.
And she was saying how much fun the movie was. You did a great.
The girl that played my daughter,
Vanessa Shaw.
yes, ended up on. Now I'm not going to remember the name of the series. But it was we were in Denver for 7 weeks shooting that movie, and it was a nice experience. It was my first experience on a movie.
Wow, the weather looked really nice for Denver in that movie. I thought it was shot in L.A.
Yeah, no, it was. We were summertime in Denver. It was. Although the last scene in L.A.
Oh, with Tommy Lasorda?
Yeah, well, they had to reshoot the last scene, that one on the bus.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Jonah told me that there was an alternate ending.
Right. I think the original ending didn't play well, and it was shot months and months later. They had to bring us all together in L.A., and it was out by the Woodley Lakes Golf Course, and we went out and reshot the ending.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, you did a great job playing this, this elite Ivy Leaguer boss. For a great deal of the movie, we dislike him because he's kind of a bully, but in the end, we like him.
Yeah. Well, there's a moment in the scene where I kicked in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Where I have Rodney kick my own daughter out of the game.
Yeah.
And when that happened at the screening,
mm-hmm.
there was a sort of groan in the audience.
Yeah.
I wanted to stand up and go, "Hey, I was acting. I'm not like that."
Oh, man. Yeah, my dad took me to see this movie. We were the only ones in the theater.
Yeah. Well, I think there was a lot of that. It didn't get a lot of play.
Yeah, I mean, it became a huge HBO staple after. I used to see it on there all the time.
Yeah.
But I still live by Rodney's quote to you to this day when he said, "What good is it being the best when it brings out the worst in you?"
You realize every scene that I'm in the movie,
yeah,
is with Rodney Dangerfield.
Right.
So, it was 7 weeks of trying not to laugh in Rodney's face.
Oh yeah, I love it when he's insulting Nancy Parsons and he's making you laugh out loud the whole time.
Yeah.
Yeah, at Christmas time they hang her and kiss the mistletoe. I interviewed Nancy Parsons' daughter, and she told me she had no idea that she was in this movie until just recently.
Oh.
Yeah, because by that time she was, moved out of the house, and she was trying to avoid her mother as much as possible. But she actually found out about the movie recently and saw it and stuff. Yeah, her mother was a good sport. She knew that she was a big woman and that she had a good sense of humor about being big,
Right.
Yeah, but that quote though, that quote so rings true though, because everybody who's the best, they leave very destructive lives.
Yes, that does seem to hold true. There's a lot of self-destructiveness with talented people.
Yeah, you've seen it in comedy,
Yeah.
Jack A. She must have been making everyone howl on the set.
Well, her energy is like what you see. I mean, she's just like that in person.
Mm-hmm.
It was a fun cast to be around. My memory of it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and Vanessa Shaw's mother, Susan DeManti, she's been on the podcast. Very sweet lady.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember there was an HBO behind-the-scenes short about the making of the movie, and there was this little bit where Rodney starts touching Vanessa inappropriately, and Susan comes out of nowhere. She says, "Hey, I told you before, leave my daughter alone."
Oh, man.
It was brilliant. And Jonathan Brandis, such a sad tragedy.
Another show business tragedy. Yeah. A very talented, but a tragic end.
Yeah. How was working with Sidney J. Fury?
He was a nice guy. Well, he had some big movies.
Yep.
And like I said, everyone was pretty talented on that production. My memory of it was really fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
A long time ago, Tony.
Yeah. It's still a movie I love to this day, though.
Good.
You did an episode of Wings?
Yes.
How was that experience?
Yeah, well, you're on with people that you're huge fans of, and and you come in and you're the new guy, and it would be easy for it to be really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Those people made their guest stars, at least me, feel very at home, and they worked
Nice. Did you meet Peter Tork?
I did not meet Peter Tork.
That's a shame. He's one of the monkeys, you know.
Yeah.
That was so cool. He was on it though.
Yeah.
How about the episode of News Radio?
Another really interesting experience. And again, it was the same. My memory of it was everybody sort of holding the new kid up and making it easy for you to be part of their ensemble, because they're a family and you're sort of the outsider. It was easy to feel like the outsider. But they welcomed their guest stars in and made everybody feel right at home. And News Radio is one of my favorite shows, so that was an exciting experience.
Yeah, it was Phil Hartman's last season too.
Yes, another. Boy, this is the show business tragedy show. Another tragic end to a brilliant career.
Yeah, but Joe Rogan, he's so successful now.
Yeah.
With his podcast and everything.
Yeah.
You played a detective in Clock Stoppers.
Yeah. Detective number 1 or something. I don't think I even had a name.
Yeah.
And that was a pretty small part. But it's exciting to have. You're sort of reminding me of things that I hadn't thought about. But yeah, I have distinct memory of being in that in the room we shot that particular. Oh, the scene in the hospital. Where'd you get the van, kid?
Yeah.
So there's a doctor, a female doctor, in that same scene, and she was in the original Alien movie, Sigourney Weaver, and she played the really buff Marine that was doing the pull-ups when they came out of the hypersleep. Named Gomez, or she had a Hispanic last name, Valdez or Gomez or something.
Right.
I couldn't play where I'm doing this scene with her, and she looks familiar. I don't know where I know her from, and she's a doctor with long hair, and we finally figured it out. But she didn't look anything like where I'd known her from. But
yeah. So did you retire from stand up and acting?
Yes. When I turned 59, I had early on, when I was 34, 35, I headlined a comedy club, and there was some guy opening for me in his mid-50s, and he was making $200 a week, and he was pissed off and bitter because that's all he knew how to do, and he had to do it because he needed the money, and that's all he could do. And I watched that guy for a week and realized I didn't want to be that guy. So I quit doing cocaine that week, and when I got home, I opened a 401k.
Wow.
And decided that I wanted to be able to retire when I wanted to retire. When I was tired of it, when I didn't want to do it anymore, I wanted to be in a financial position that I could say, okay, this is when I'm going to retire. And strangers a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I made enough to retire. So I called it work. And it's been nice. I went back once, somebody, 2 or 3 years into retirement, somebody had a show that they wanted before. And I kept saying no, and they kept raising the amount of money, and I finally said yes. And as soon as I said yes, I regretted it. And now it's coming up show, and the last 2 or 3 weeks before the show, it's 3,000 people in a theater, and I'm just tense, and I haven't done comedy in 3 or 4 years. And I'm going back over DVDs of my show to remind myself of the show, trying to put a show together. And I'm watching DVDs from 20 years before, and I'm watching myself do a routine.
Yeah.
And I'm in the middle of the setup of the routine, and all I can think is, where are you going with this? I didn't remember the routine. I got to the punchline, I laughed. That was good. So now I get to the place where I'm doing this show, and I get up and I walk on stage, and in 10 seconds, it's like I've never been off the stage.
Wow.
And I had a great time. It was a great show. But I'm glad I did it, but it didn't make me want to do it anymore. I liked the show. I liked performing.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else that you had to do to get to that, minutes went out, that I didn't want to do anymore. So it was mostly traffic.
Yeah.
So I gave it up, and I don't miss it. It was a great job. I had a great job. And I'll tell Eddie, it was the best job I could have ever had. But I'm glad to have moved on.
Wow, I would have never figured you for cocaine. When did that start?
Nobody would have ever figured me. I don't know. Probably, it wasn't, I wasn't doing it that way. Probably early 30s.
Like, probably
with making too much money.
Yeah, that's a Robin Williams quote.
That's $100? Give me free.
Yeah.
And it was a social thing. I was not like Robin. I was not using it the way Robin Williams used it.
Yeah.
But I was spending more money than I should have been spending on it.
Mm-hmm.
And was not thinking about my future. And that guy started me thinking about my future. And for you young people, whether you're in show business or not,
mm-hmm.
start making plans now.
Yeah.
You'll appreciate it when you get older, that you started financial planning early.
Yeah, even if they don't go as you planned, at least you have something in the back of your mind.
Absolutely. And it really made quitting easy. And for that, I'm grateful to that guy, whoever it was. I can't remember who it was, but I've been thankful to him ever since.
Oh, that's wonderful. What are you doing these days?
Well, I play a lot of golf.
Yeah.
I'm considering doing a vlog, considering it. And we're traveling a lot. My wife and I have decided to do some more traveling. We're getting a Tesla.
Nice.
And we're gonna drive an electric car around and see some of the country.
Nice. That's great.
I'm basically enjoying my retirement.
Oh, that's good. Most people, they get bored really quick when they retire.
No, I've been finding a lot of stuff to do. been learning video editing. I still work a little bit. A producer friend of mine, he does music specials for PBS. We're doing the yes Gershwin Prize for Popular Song honoring Garth Brooks. It's taping in Washington, D.C. March 4, and we'll air towards the end of March on PBS. I write for him. I write proposals for his shows. When he's got people talking on his shows, I write the scripting for that. We did 3 in performance at the White House specials, music specials. And I got to go to the White House 3 times during the Obama administration and be in the White House for 3 days each. So I got to spend 9 days in the White House during the production of those 3 specials during the Obama administration. One of the best experiences of my show business career.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah, it was just amazing.
Wow.
We did a from the White House. And who's going to write a Motown special better than me? And then we did a Latin music special. Again, who's going to write a Latin music special better than me? And then we did a country music special, which seems more up my alley.
Yeah.
They were, again, it was a terrific experience being around the Obamas and being around the White House during their administration.
Wow, that's incredible. Are you still in contact with Obama?
I wish. We kept thinking we were living in the Palm Springs area. There was some talk we was going to buy a house out here.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's become of that.
Did you still talk to Rodney before he died?
I saw him a couple of times in L.A. After the movie, but not on a regular basis. So.
No.
A couple of times.
I see. You directed a play called Waiting for Ringo. Have you directed any more plays?
No, just that one. That was at a theater in Los Angeles. And again, I'm able to do, that's one of the things I've liked about my career. I'm able to do a lot of the things which you fantasize about doing when you start. I've actually gotten to do. And that was a great experience, was being able to direct actors. And had good reviews on that show, too. But yeah, no, that was the only thing that I ever directed.
Wow. Yeah, was it a good enough experience, at least?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was a very exciting experience. And we got reviewed well. And I believe in the review, my direction got mentioned.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah, so it was a very positive experience.
But you had no desire to do it again because you were still working as a comic?
Exactly. I had other things that I was doing. It was a sort of one-time thing where the timing worked out that I could do it. I wasn't doing anything during I don't remember, it was a month and a half of prep. That show. And I didn't have any, I was available. But that didn't always happen. That kind of timing didn't always work out.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that everything's working out now, Tom, and I thank you so much for coming on today.
Tommy, I really appreciate you giving me a call and having this talk with you. I'm a fan of the show.
Oh.
Lots of people that you've had on the show. And I'm going to continue to follow you.
Oh, thank you so much, Tom. I really appreciate that. Yeah, if you help me get the word out, that would be awesome.
You got it, man.
Well, you have yourself a great day, and God bless you.
Thank you, Tommy.
Okay, bye-bye. Well, there you have it. Tom Parks. Ain't he a cool dude? Wow, he's a fan. I'm so touched by that. Tom Parks is a great guy, a funny guy, and I'm glad everything worked out for him in this crazy thing called showbiz. If you like this video, everyone, please subscribe to my YouTube channel, add me as a friend on Facebook, join my Tommy Kovac comedian page on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram, and all that fun stuff. Well, that's all the time we have this week on Splat from the Past. Until next time, this is Tommy Throwback Kovac saying, there's no shame in living in the past, because the present sucks. Later, dudes!